Righty, guys. JP here from Alpha Wolf Consulting, coming to you today with the next session in my personal development and expansion series. So this episode or this session is going to go off of yesterday's talk. So yesterday's talk, we talked a lot about understanding beliefs and how to create new beliefs and how our beliefs are formed and what are beliefs and what are limiting beliefs, what are positive beliefs, what are negative beliefs. So going through and really doing a deep dive into the beliefs. Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to go over the the unconscious aspect of a belief, which is the emotion. So our beliefs influence our thoughts and our feelings. Our feelings are just our emotions. So what we've got to understand, and going on from yesterday, is our beliefs are the memories or the meaning of outcome in our conscious mind. In our subconscious mind, our beliefs are the meaning of why we are experiencing this or why this is important. So it's much more on the understanding the link between the feeling and the sensation and the memory associated with it. So our memories for our feelings will typically be the experience of going through something, and our memories for our conscious meaning will typically be outcomes. So think of it like, you know, trekking through the jungle as being our subconscious, and then you know, the so to speak, the victory parade of coming out of the jungle for our conscious memory. So we just got to understand how these work in conjunction with one another. Okay, so when we're trying to work on influencing our emotions, well, we understand that our beliefs are what influence our conscious focus and our subconscious focus. So it's through our beliefs that we reprogram our emotional states or influence our emotional states. And it's through reassigning new meaning or new experience to those beliefs that we're able to assign different emotions or assign new meaning for that emotion. So, it's an important aspect of it that we really focus in on understanding the link between meaning and memory. So, memory is the visual, audio, sensational experience of meaning. So, our brain and how it's wired, when we think of meaning of love, our brain only understands it in the experience of us experiencing love to an extent. Our logical brain understands what the definitions and terminology are of love. But when we're thinking about our brain and we're trying to understand and experience that emotion, our brain does it through audio visual stimulation or through sensations. So I get a warm feeling inside. So what we're trying to do is understand the range or variation in different emotions and stimulations and sensations that we feel, but also in understanding the memories associated to them. For example, I can think of love and I can think of times I've been in love, or I can think of heartbreak and breakups and all of that. They're both assigned to different feelings or emotions. One is hurt, one is joy. So if I want to feel more joyful, I can try and go in there and alter the meaning of hurt to be joyful. So finding love after heartbreak and all of this and reassign it to joy, and it just comes in as a form under joy, or I can just ignore that and focus all my attention on the current understanding of joy. So to understand this is just to understand when I think of love, I can choose to think of all the good times, or I can choose to think of all the bad times. If I choose to think of all the bad times, I can sit in victim mentality. But if I don't want to sit in victim mentality, then I can reassign new meaning so that they become joy. And that's how we're able to feel joy in heartbreak, or joy in pain, or joy in sorrow, whatever it is. It's just about realigning new meanings that stimulate that emotional response. So our beliefs are just our thought patterns or language structure. It can be words like individual or in groupings. It can be statements or meanings of words that alter and change, determined based on personal bias or personal meaning associated to them. So think, for example, like military mottos or warrior mottos, like, to die brave, like, or the brave die young. Like something like that has more meaning associated to it than just the meaning of the individual words that make up the grouping. So we just got to understand for some things, a statement might hold completely different meaning to the words that make up that statement. Okay, because we might associate, for example, positive, like bravery, or like self-sacrifice or something like that. Like we might put it as it being a positive statement, not a negative statement. So that's what we're thinking about when we're trying to use our language or our language patterns to influence our beliefs, is we're curating meaning or individual meaning to each of the words that we put in there, so it holds additional information, so we can become more information dense in the way in which we communicate to ourselves. So when we add additional meaning, okay, and in our conscious brain, this meaning is in the form of memories of outcomes and things like that, memories of circumstances, environments. Our conscious mind is focused on everything outside of us. When it is our subconscious mind, it is in the mindset, or it is in the focus of the self and self-protection. So the experiences we go on through. So things like, having to physically struggle through an obstacle course. The meaning in our subconscious is the state in which we were when we experienced it. So it's very important to understand this, because this really allows us to dive into understanding the difference in the meaning, and then how to artificially influence that difference in meaning. So now I understand that with my subconscious, when I want to reassign meaning for my emotions, it is in the experiences I've gone through, or the memories of experiencing different things. So I'm able to alter and shape the memories that are presented to me through conscious focus, and through, when I visualize or see a memory of something I do not like, I alter and shift that memory. So for things like worrying, not worrying, procrastinating, but overthinking and like over analysis, when I find myself over focusing on a specific environment, on a specific incident or situation that happened, whatever it may be, like I consciously redirect it to a new like memory. Like I don't want to be focused in on the negative memory. So I shift to more positive memories. Do you know what I mean? So memories where, I have felt this way, but it's gone positive. So one thing might be overthinking about, let's say you met someone and you thought you had a great date, and now you're overthinking about did they like me, this, that, and the other. Like we just shifted to a new memory where we were out on a date with someone and we thought it went really, really well, and then it went really, really well. Like, do you know what I mean? So we're focusing on the ones that have the positive outcomes because essentially we want to feel positive. So we won't ever get to feeling positive by focusing on the negative. It doesn't work like that. If we focus on the negative, we end in the negative. So to understand this is just to understand if we take the exact same analogy of going out on a date. Okay, if I'm focused on that date not going bad, I don't want the date to go bad. I don't want the date to go bad, opposed to focusing on the date going good. What happens is it alters and shifts my focus, my perspective, and the information that I deem to be relevant in it. So if I don't want the date to go bad, I want everything to run perfectly how it should be. However, it should be, it's like, who knows what a good date is? You don't know until you're in the middle of one. So it's sort of like we're trying to create an artificial construct of what is the ideal date, and then we're trying to measure everything against it. Now, the downside to this alters and shifts our way of thinking in terms of things having values. So if she laughs, that's a good indicator. If something awkward is said, that's a bad indicator. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if we're on the other side of it and we're just focused on having a really good day, it's sort of like all I'm focused on is what are the things that are fun, that I enjoy, that most people enjoy. And then all we do is invest all of our time and attention into expanding upon them. Do you know what I mean? Good food is fun. Good food with good conversation is even funner. Like we just keep expanding on them. So rather than trying to measure everything to be perfectly ideal to this ideal, box of what it's meant to be, we are more in a creative flow of these are activities that have positive benefits or make a date more positive or fun. And these are things that don't. So I'm not even going to worry about the things that don't. I'm just going to focus on the things that do. So it's that shift in perspective from one is looking to make sure everything is perfect and everything is measured against an ultimate, truth of, you know, if I'm very, very funny and charming, that's a 10. Do you know what I mean? Like we're creating an artificial number to represent the value of the action. And then, unless there's agreement upon the values we've assigned to them, like it's quite difficult. Whereas the other is focused more on creating the environment that leads to the outcome. So that's very important to understand because we tend to do this where we get focused on not what we don't want. So I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be sad. Well, if you don't want to be sad, choose to be happy. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a very easy choice. But then it's sort of like, well, how do we be happy? Or how can I be happy in the context of, you know, if I'm feeling negative, well, how can I be happy? And the simple answer is to choose to be happy. But when we say choose to be happy, it's about reassigning the definition and meaning of happy, reassigning the focus and the perspective of happy. Is happy when everything goes in the exact order that I've laid out? Is that when I'm happy? Or am I able to be happy even when everything is going against me? And that's an important thing, is that we have to understand that separation, that it's choice. Everything in life comes down to choice. Anyone that says you have to do anything outside of choice is full of shit. If you want to earn money, it's a choice to earn money. Like, you just take more actions towards earning money. But if you're saying that you want to earn money, but then there's all these caveats of, I have to do this job, I have to do this, I have to earn it this way, I have to blah, blah, blah. Like, we're saying that it's not the choice, it's all the other bullshit in the external environment that has to line up for that choice to be worthy of being made. Like, that's the thing. So a lot of people will add additional barriers to make things overly complicated or overly difficult to make it acceptable for them to quit or for them to give up. They had no intention of succeeding. The attention or intention of succeeding was purely for, like, validation. If I have validation from everyone around me that dieting and exercising is good, I will diet and exercise. If I don't have the validation from it, I don't have to. Like, all these different things. So when we understand our emotions, we understand that we get to choose what emotions mean in terms of if they're positive or negative. We get to choose what emotion we feel in any environment or circumstance. So it's not that we just are responding to our emotions, we are determining what emotion we want to feel. If someone says something hurtful to me, I can choose to feel emotional and hurt. I can choose to feel angry and, you know, aggressive. I can choose to feel sarcastic and demeaning. Like, however I want to feel. Like, if someone says something hurtful to me, I can then go back and say something hurtful to them. I can go back and say, let's turn this into a physical altercation and increase the level of threat or whatever. Like, so there's many different ways in which we can respond in our emotions. And state management or emotional stability, so emotional management of our states, our emotional states within our body, mean that we pick and choose the emotions that we want to feel. So it's not that if someone says something hurtful to me, I don't feel hurt. It's that I choose to feel happy while I'm feeling hurt. Like, it's okay. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm overriding hurtful being negative to where I feel, hurt and sad and all that. I just feel hurt and happy. So when we understand this, it's just understanding that the more I choose the emotions that I am willing to feel in any situation, the more control in any situation I have to choose the emotions that I want to feel. So the more I do it consciously, the easier it is to do subconsciously. So I don't find myself reacting to the situation. I find myself dictating the situation because it's all just muscle memory, synaptic pathways. So that's an important thing, is we're just shifting and altering the meaning, okay, or the memory associated to the meaning of the emotion that we're feeling. So if someone says something hurtful to me, the meaning is disrespect. They've disrespected me. And then the memory is all the times I've been disrespected by other people and what I had to do. So we're shifting that, and maybe we want to say, if they're saying something hurtful, it's a reflection of them. And the memory we change it to is all the times people have said stupid shit that's just a reflection of their own internal conversation that they're unable to have with themselves, i.e., when people don't look at their own behaviors and actions and emotions and all of that, they tend to project onto other people the conversations that they wish they could have internally, but they avoid the internal by looking at the external. So just understand we're doing the opposite. We're avoiding the external and only looking at the internal. It doesn't matter if when someone said something hurtful to me, all these people talked about me behind my back. Like that doesn't mean anything. Like it's the internal state of when someone says something hurtful to me, I choose, is it a negative emotion, or is it a negative event that's happened to me, or is it a positive event that's happened to me? Okay. So when we understand that, we just understand that it's easy to change and shift our behavior, like our emotions at will, but it's very hard to manage them. Managing our emotions means every time I feel my emotions becoming unstable, so I feel myself getting angry, I artificially shut down my emotions through letting it go. Every time someone says something hurtful to me, I let go to the feeling of being hurt, and then I respond to the situation. So I'm not responding in an emotional response. I'm responding like with my emotion in check. So if someone says something hurtful to me, I can say something snappy back to them. I don't have to do it in a way that I'm trying to attack them or I'm trying to hurt them because they've hurt me. But I can do it in a way where I'm putting up a boundary, or I can do it in a way that dismisses them. Someone might call you ugly, and you go, I know, trying to get a date out here is difficult as, whatever it may be. Like, whatever they may say to you, like, understand if they're saying it, they don't address it within themselves. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't use something that you've overcome within yourself to attack someone else. So I'm not going to use the way I found joy and happiness to try and attack someone else because I know it's beneficial to them. Like, does it sort of make sense? When someone does something to me, it's something that they perceive, if it's a negative thing they're doing to me, to be negative, i.e., they don't understand it. When someone says something hurtful to me, it's because hurtful words hurt them. Like, do you sort of get it? Like, they're not saying something hurtful to me because, like, hurtful words don't hurt them. Do you know what I mean? So we understand that when people attack us, they attack us with what they perceive to be the most deadly or devastating attacks. Okay? Like they're not saying something that they think is positive. So that's an important thing to understand, is that they're not attacking you from a position of strength. Like they don't have more knowledge or understanding in that area that they're attacking you through, because they still fear it subconsciously. Because I'm not going to hit you with something that I think is soft. It defeats the purpose of hitting you with it. Does that make sense? So when we understand our emotions, we understand that nothing said to us is of relevance if it's in a negative income, like a negative notion. If someone says something in negative, like with negative intent, it is never going to be anything of value. Okay. So they're going to say something, but they don't understand what they're saying because they haven't dealt with or overcome it. Do you sort of understand? Like, I'm not going to go out there and attack you with a feather because nothing happens. So I'm going to attack you with what I perceive to be dangerous and deadly. What I perceive to be a deadly weapon or a dangerous weapon, so to speak. So it's sort of like when we think of it in terms of people trying to emotionally manipulate our emotional state of being, because that's what happens in a lot of societal life and a lot of social interactions and things like that. Like someone might be in a bored mood and just want to sort of make a bit of a joke and have a bit of fun. And maybe they want to, you know, sort of have a bit of banter and, hurl insults or say stupid shit like that. Like, the whole point of it isn't to, make you angry or upset, but it's a game of testing. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to test and make you emotionally unstable and alter and affect your emotional states just to the point where you come up to your line and then they let go of it. So sometimes it's intentional where people are trying to drive us into emotional instability, and other times it's just, what people deem as being fun. So what we want to do to achieve state management is we want to take control of the emotions. I choose when I'm happy. I choose when I'm sad. I choose when things are negative or hurtful to me, and I choose when things are joyous to me. Like I determine prior to showing the emotion. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of like if someone says something to me that is designed to get an emotional response, then I choose which emotion do I want to display? How do I want to display that emotion? Like it's about making a conscious choice in every moment and not allowing ourselves to override that. So if someone does something disrespectful to me, I don't get to say they did, but they did this. It's sort of like whatever the emotional response is that I choose, and we can choose any emotional response. So it's not to say that we're always choosing zero. It's that if someone walks up and let's say they slap my, like, let's say I have a wife and they slap my wife in the face. Like my emotional response can be to kick their teeth in. Like I can choose extreme, like the extreme response and still be emotionally stable. Like it's the giving into the unconscious aspect of it that we don't want to do. And the unconscious aspect, as we've learned, is all about habits, synaptic pathways. The conscious mind and the unconscious mind structure is based on habitual nature or habitual patterns. So we so we've got to understand that our subconscious, okay, if not developed, okay, so when someone says something, to trigger me, like it will normally trigger me because I haven't invested into understanding what triggers me and why it triggers me. As I invest into understanding what triggers me and why it triggers me, I then see people's behavior for what it is, and I'm able to see the intention behind the action. Are they triggering me to get a laugh? Just to get me to say something stupid and get frustrated? Are they triggering me to get me unstable to make me act like a fool? Like however it may be. So we just got to understand when we're doing our state management, we want to create artificial or set limits to where our emotions naturally lie. So, do we want to be a calm person with very calm emotions? Do we want to have vibrant emotions? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, having vibrant emotions, having calm emotions doesn't mean that there's no volatility. There can be volatility in calm as there can be volatility in sort of like active. So we just got to understand that we choose what emotions we want to amplify and feel and what emotions we don't. If I don't want to feel anger, I just choose never to feel anger. Do you sort of understand? Like I replace in every situation, in every circumstance, anger with another emotion. So, like every situation that is designed to lead to anger leads to this other emotion. So it's sort of like we're able to choose it to where we box off our anger and say, I can only use anger to defend myself or something like that. And then we box off that anger and we have a clear, defined, circumstances or situations where we're allowed to, let the anger out and expand that emotion. But we're not doing it from a state of emotional instability. So we've made a conscious choice. It's not an unconscious impulse. So that's an important thing to understand is that separation between when I choose to let out an emotion or expand on an emotion or like, feel that emotion in its fullest, like I'm making a conscious decision, like in that context. So it's very important to understand the difference between conscious and unconscious. So one comes from seeing a situation and then determining the best course of action. The other comes in as finding yourself in the middle of a situation and having to try and figure out how to respond to that situation as best you can. So, for example, one like when we're doing our state management practices, so like for example, we don't only have like the point isn't to be emotionally stable in a temple. The point is to find a temple of emotional stability within yourself inside the chaos of war. So the point isn't to be emotionally stable while everyone's polite to you, everyone's friendly to you, everyone's building you up. The point's to be emotionally stable when everyone's trying to tear you down. When we can find that level of emotional stability, okay, and it doesn't even have to be other people, it can be environments, it can be circumstances. It's like finding inner peace when you're exerting your body at its maximum potential. So to be able to find that balance between the exertion and the chaos of that additional energy and the balance of the calm of sort of not disassociation, but of the lack of that energy. So it's sort of like the the movement before the strike of the punch. There's empty space where there's the fist is moving. So before like from when the fist is in prime to when it like penetrates or when it hits someone in the face is empty space. So am I feeling chaotic while I'm waiting for the impact, or am I at peace while I wait for the impact? Do you sort of get it? So the point is to be at peace because the more at peace I am in the chaos, the easier it is to think, the clearer it is to think. So it's sort of like when I'm in a situation that causes emotional instability, I'm at peace in between the bad things that are happening. So I'm not amplifying that chaos, so to speak. I'm not fearing what's going to happen after the punch lands. I'm in the moment of observing the punch land. And that way I am able to then respond to the environment should a punch be coming for me. If all my focus is in the punch, I'm blind to everything else. So I don't see the strike coming. So it's being able to take an action, okay, and then also observe that action while it's in motion. So to feel an emotion and observe that emotion while you are feeling it. So we're not just observing the emotion, we're feeling it and in the moment observing the experience of it. And this is really important because this is the sensational way that we reprogram the the memories. So, when I feel love, I sit there and I experience it and I feel it and I lock it in and I understand it. I observe it as I'm experiencing it rather than just experiencing it or observing it. So it's sort of like this different way of looking at it to a point of like the emotions I feel, I'm not just feeling. Like I am controlling the determination of the meaning of those emotions, of the feelings and the sensory experience of those emotions. Like I get to determine everything because our mind is just making things up. So when we get into the subconscious mind, there is no logic, there is no reason, there is no structure. If I feel love, am I feeling love at a 1? Am I feeling love at a 10? Like there is no scale of measurement, so to speak. Like what is a 10? Can you define that in metric terms? Like what is it, 69,785? Like what is it? It doesn't exist. So it's a perceived scale that is illogical or not based in measurement. Our subconscious mind doesn't understand measurement in those terms of time or distance. So, like, we don't understand duration and we don't understand distance in the context of if I'm feeling love, okay, and I'm feeling a 10 out of a 10 of love, like there is no duration that I'm experiencing. Like, am I feeling that for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds? Like, what is it? But the sensory experience of that or the sensational experience of that, like, what is it? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no measurement or scale that measures like that emotion or that feeling. So we are able to amplify them to infinity if we want. We are able to lower them to less than a millimeter. If I feel anger, like there is no scale. I've just determined metrics and arbitrary points that I have aligned actions to. Do you know what I mean? If someone does this to me, I'm allowed to get angry. Blah, 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 blah. But I can move that down to a millimeter to where anger doesn't even exist, to where there's one small thing. Do you know what I mean? That someone's got to do to make me angry. And it's sort of like I can have it at that millimeter to where it essentially doesn't exist in all of space and time. Or I can amplify that to where I feel anger for everything, every small thing. So the important thing to understand is that just with our emotions, the first part is about choosing what do I want to feel? How do I want when we're talking about our state, our emotional state, and managing that. Like, how do I want to feel? Do I want to feel happy? Do I want to feel focused? Do you know what I mean? Do I want to feel, secure? Well, if I want to feel secure, then, not to say that we have to have anger, but we have to have capacity for anger, because capacity for aggression makes us feel secure against other aggression. And we can try and work back from this and say that we take the pacifist stance, where it's sort of like, instead of me having capacity for anger, I expand the capacity for love. Like, both ways are fine, both ways work. We can take the love and peace approach and say that even in someone attacking me, I can still feel love and peace for myself and for others. Or we can take the response of, if someone attacks me, I can defend myself with aggression or anger. So the important thing to understand is, like, our subconscious, these emotions, we have to know why we are doing them. Like, why, if I'm holding on or holding anger as a part of me, or aggressiveness, or, well, it'd be anger, the emotion of anger, but I'm holding the emotion of anger. Like, why is it important for me to do that? Like, the meaning behind it dictates it, so that we're not feeling angry at everything. Anger is not the only response. Like, this is why I have aggression and anger in my life, or in my, emotional state. So I have the capacity for this. And we know that, sort of, so to speak, logically, but then also it's that understanding that if my subconscious tries to feel anger for anything outside of that, like, it's not real. So we get rid of those emotions. They're not our emotions. We know why we feel anger. Like, we know when we will feel anger. So it's the same for love. Like, why do we feel love? So that we're not just bombarded by someone saying, I love you. And then it's just like, oh, I love you too. Like, it's not about, like, it's about having, sort of, so to speak, rules of our emotions and why we feel them. So maybe I feel love when someone shows me love. Do you know what I mean? But if I'm just feeling love whenever, without limitations, whenever someone says something, well, people can use words to manipulate me. People can use actions. They can, use environments, circumstances, like all these different things. So understanding the rules on how we feel things, and the reason why. Like, why do I feel love? Why do I feel love for other people? Like, understanding this makes it easier for us to determine when and how to show it without being uncontrolled. Alrighty. So that's going to end this one. We'll probably jump back on and do a little bit more tomorrow about the emotions, and really finish them off. They're quite a deep and intimate aspect of our subconscious, and they're the only way, or the key way, that our subconscious understands how to communicate with us. So our emotions and feelings are how our emotional, or our subconscious mind, communicates, like, its wants and needs to us. All right. So we'll continue on tomorrow, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much. Bye.